So the next guy we have is Judge Ken Starr. This is the first witness in this hearing, and he is just giving his views on why this is important and why we need to hear it. There's not really much in this one. He's just kind of giving his opinion as to why this hearing is important and kind of some past things that have happened as to why we definitely need to have this hearing here. Not much to it, so I'll just kick straight in. I think it's only a quick one, little 5 minutes or something like that. So yeah, we'll just go straight into it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Peters and members of the committee. It's an honor to be with you, even remotely. Over a century ago, the Supreme Court of the United States wrote this: "The right to vote is a fundamental political right, preservative of all rights." And over our 231 years as a constitutional democracy, the story of our American experiment is in no small part a story of expansion and inclusion. And that policy has been undergirded by a desire to achieve human dignity and equality of all persons. In the wake of the Civil War, very briefly, our constitutional history in terms of amendments governing voting. The 15th Amendment served as the capstone of the three post-Civil War amendments, which taken together abolished slavery, guaranteed due process and equal protection to all persons, and then expanding the right to participate to all persons. With the franchise expanding came 100 years ago the inclusion of women in 1920 as a federal constitutional right, the 19th Amendment, the elimination of financial impediments to vote, the 24th Amendment in 1964. And finally, in the wake of the Vietnam War, the expansion of the vote in federal elections to include 18-year-olds, the 26th Amendment in 1971. And of course, along the way, Congress acted to foster the values of the 15th Amendment through the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1964 with its extensions over time. Now, underlying this story of ever-expanding voting rights was an assumption, that is one of integrity in the process. Recall the scene in the wonderful movie Selma, as the would-be voter portrayed by Oprah Winfrey was unconscionably stymied in her effort simply to register to vote. Dishonesty caused disenfranchisement and enormous moral outrage. The flip side of racially motivated disenfranchisement is the bedrock concept of treat everyone fairly and be honest in the process. And this bears repeating. Honesty in the electoral process is fundamental to the social bonds that unite us as a free people, echoing the chairman's opening statement. And not surprisingly, the Supreme Court of the United States has severely warned about the dangers and the corrosive effects of dishonesty. Here's what a unanimous Supreme Court wrote in 2006. Confidence in the integrity of our electoral processes is essential to the functioning of our participatory democracy. And the court went on to say, voter fraud drives honest citizens out of the democratic process and breeds distrust of our form of government. So how do we achieve honesty and integrity in elections? It's a challenge for the reason the chairman suggested, decentralization. We have national elections, but we do not have a nationalized election with one set of rules. Indeed, both Article 1 and...
Which is quite a strange concept. Sorry, this guy's a bit slow, but he makes a good point there. Like, there is no overarching rules that the states have to abide by when voting. Like, there's no guidelines that they have to follow as all the states for the election, which is very strange. You'd think there would be, just as a base assumption, and there's no reason why there isn't. Obviously, different states have different rules, but when it comes to an election, which is a culmination of all the states, there should be a unifying theory behind it all. a unifying guideline behind it all. So very strange and very odd that one does not exist. We'll go back to this guy again. Sorry, he's a bit slow, but I mean that's just part of it, really.
Article 2 point out the approach of our decentralized government, and that is we look to the states, but specifically state legislatures. Both Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution and Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2. And so, as in much of life, the guardrails of integrity are needed, and time and again, courts have warned in the strongest terms that assuring honesty and integrity is a compellingly important governmental interest. Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, now retired, who herself had been elected to state office in Arizona, specifically warned that judicial intervention may be required in order to protect the integrity of the election process. And so, as we'll be exploring in this hearing, the presidential election 2020, with its unprecedented feature of the use of mail-in ballots, has given rise to a number of questions that deserve to be answered. I will, instead of pointing to examples such as in Pennsylvania, where there was a clear violation of the law, and then the statement of Justice Samuel Alito, since my time has now expired, I want to close just by a reminder that in history, there was, in fact, a campaign, an illicit campaign, to deprive Abraham Lincoln of the presidency, and that was through the use of mail-in ballots. So I think in the spirit of the Carter-Baker Commission, it's wise for us, since of the warning that they had with respect to mail-in ballots, to pause and reflect on how we can, in fact, better assure that bedrock factor and feature of integrity in the election process. I thank the chairman and I thank the committee.
So, yeah, not much to that one. Just kind of a little brief summary of history and stuff, so stuff like that. So, yeah, hope you've enjoyed. Sorry that was a bit slow, but there is way more coming. All right, stay tuned. Don't forget, like, subscribe, share it around. Let's get this going. All right, catch you in the next one.